just a sign of things to come, folks. Believe it or not, do not turn off your sets. But Paul and I, at some point, because he's actually a really good singer and guitar player, at some point, we're going to take it live, Paul and I. And I don't know if Caleb sings. Do you sing, Caleb?
I don't know if I sing, but we could figure out something.
Wow.
Play some drums or something?
Do you know how to play the drums?
A little bit.
Really?
Oh, you heard it here first, folks. Isn't this cool? Well, anyway, so if I look a little darker to you and maybe a little bit more relaxed, it's because while you are enjoying the wonderful heat wave up here in Vermont, Colette and I were down at Wells Beach with enjoying the beautiful sea breeze coming off the ocean and sitting in the sun. We had 3 great, gloriously unoppressive days in the sunshine. Went to see the Portland Sea Dogs, which is the Red Sox minor league affiliate. And I also got a Red Sox shirt here, which Paul informed me when I walked in that I can't wear that shirt in here.
Not allowed to wear that here.
Yeah, well, too bad. But I will just finish my little discussion of our vacation by saying we met a woman on the beach. One of the cool things about the beach is you run into people you would never really speak with very much. And we met a woman with a Star of David tat on her shoulder. She is a born and raised New Yorker, went to Brooklyn College the way Bernie Sanders did, and said that, Bernie Sanders could never have been elected president for one reason, which is something I never thought of in a million years, but she did. And when we do our All About Bernie episode coming up sometime in the next few weeks, you better believe we're going to talk about that because it was a real eye-opener for me. So, but today, Paul, we'll be talking about the Veto Session and on Monday.
Yeah.
And see, I think you're going to have some real input into this because I took off not just a few hours after it ended.
Yeah.
And I did not pay an awful lot of attention to what was happening in Vermont when I was sitting on the beach.
Which you really needed to do, if I'm not mistaken.
You're darn right.
You might have needed a break from
this. I was starting to feel like Oliver Anthony.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's what you seemed like last Friday. You were like, oh.
Yeah. I was kind of like falling asleep, wasn't I?
You were tired.
Well, anyway.
Much needed break.
We are going to talk about today, folks, about the Veto Session. And, we wake up and we wished it weren't true, but it is. And some of the things that did happen that didn't happen at the Veto Session, and some information we put together and are continuing to put together that will help you do something about it. The next step in all of this. But first and foremost, folks, we really want to know what you think about the bills that were, the vetoes that were overridden, and the one that was actually sustained. And what's the future of Vermont here with this? Paul, would you say that what do you think was the biggest bill, the most sort of important one?
Absolutely the property tax increase.
Wow.
By a long shot. I mean, for the buzz, people that were talking about it and what people are concerned most about, it was absolutely the property tax increase of 14%.
So if people want to buzz to us, how do they do that?
So yeah, if you're watching live here on any of our platforms, you should be able to write in. And if anyone's viewing on Twitter, I hope that I've had the sound issue fixed. By the way, I've been trying to get that straight. But if you're watching on any of the platforms, there should be, if you're watching on Facebook, you write into the comments and you can write in, talk with us. If you're on YouTube, there should be a chat feature below. And please write in. We want to hear from you guys. We want to hear what you think of the Veto Session and really what you think it means for Vermonters and what it means for you. What do you make of this and what are you going to do about it? So if you want to write in and join the conversation, we want you to. So please do.
And how do people subscribe to our YouTube page? We've got to mention that.
Yeah, if you're viewing on YouTube, and if you're viewing everywhere, I will say this: we don't necessarily prefer that you view on YouTube. We want it to be open to everywhere you can watch it. We want you to watch it. Right. But if you're watching on YouTube specifically, please hit the subscribe button. Every subscriber just pushes us further and further along towards our goals and helps spread the message here in Vermont and grows the Vermont Daily Chronicle. Subscribing to our YouTube is imperative, and it's free and it's easy to do. And if you're watching on Facebook or on X or wherever, please follow us, hit the like button. And the reason we do this every single time we do a show is because this is one of the easiest ways that you can support the Vermont Daily Chronicle. I mean, it's just the work that we're doing. We need to get it out there, and this is one way that you can do it. So it doesn't cost you a thing, other than maybe your cell phone bill, but I'm sure you're using your phone for more than the Chronicle. So
I think so. Okay. Thank you, Paul.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, this H887 13.8 estimated statewide property tax increase and a 3% tax on short-term rentals and a software tax. And if you read the Chronicle today, you would see that short-term rental tax, that is no small thing.
No.
There are a lot of people, because we have such a housing crisis that this legislature did virtually nothing to help with. We have such a housing crisis. There are people who stay in short-term rentals. They just basically go from short-term rental to short-term rental because they can't. Oh,
that's what I do.
That would be you?
That's what I do.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I make it work. Sometimes you spend a little bit of time at home, and then you move out into maybe an inn or an Airbnb, or
Right.
you live there for a little while because got to make something work. And even that, they're coming after. My goodness.
Yes,
It's
adding a
unbelievable.
short-term rental, and those folks, of course, are still subject to the property tax increase, which is going to be ginormous.
Of course.
Oh, but then an extra 3% on this, and I know people who would be homeless and living under bridges, and I know people in this situation that if it weren't for the short-term rentals,
Yeah.
that's where they'd be.
Yeah.
So legislature just made it harder.
They failed us, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, that's obviously my opinion.
Yeah.
But this is one of the big, that's why 887 is just such a big deal, because it was so imperative to Vermonters that they did something to fix that problem, and they didn't.
You mentioned that as you're selling Creemees here, you talk to people, and
Yeah.
What's the feedback been like?
I just hear from people, they're saying to me things like, I'll give you a good example. Shout out to Lynn Doney here in Northfield. He was telling me of some of his friends, people that have lived here in Vermont forever, and he thought that they would never ever leave. They built this beautiful home up on the hill. They have the pond and everything, just their dream house. And after I think 15 years of doing that and making it happen, they have decided that next year they're leaving. They're starting to pack right now, and they're getting ready to put their house on the market. I mean, I know even people in my own family who are getting out of here. So
Right.
I'm not going anywhere, though. Not yet. No, I'm not going anywhere.
But the taxes have something to do with that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, think about it. If your mortgage if your tax payment is more than your mortgage payment, what is it, quarterly when you pay your property taxes?
Right.
That's pretty scary.
Yeah.
And they're thinking, like, I'm supposed to own my home. I'm supposed to own it, especially if I'm paying the mortgage and maybe you've even got it paid down, right? But if you don't, and you're still trying to buy the house, but you're paying more for the mortgage or for your property taxes than you are for your house, I mean, that's just totally, it's nuts. It's nuts. And I just don't understand the mentality of people in Montpelier who don't see this. How are they not feeling it? Like, how are they not how do they not have this burden? I guess it just doesn't make any sense.
Right. Well, I've been thinking that it's sort of the stockholder and customer thing. That if you look at the legislature as a corporation, who do they work for? Well, corporation, they don't really work for the customers.
No.
They work for the stockholders.
Absolutely.
And their stockholders are the renewable power industry.
Yeah.
The sort of Planned Parenthood trans industry, perhaps the hospitals, renewable power. Those are the stockholders.
Sure.
People they really want to keep happy for whatever reason. Maybe promises made, maybe help with elections, who knows.
Well, it's like you and I have talked about. We were talking about this earlier before we went on the show. It's like why do they make the decisions that they make, and who are they really representing? I think it's becoming more obvious to Vermonters day by day that they're not representing the people of the state. It's special interests and national influence that just doesn't have Vermonters' best interest in mind.
If you want to know how people voted, folks, I just posted 20 minutes ago on the Vermont Daily Chronicle a spreadsheet of every vote in the veto session. And you can click on the most recent story, and you will see the name of every legislator, every House member, every Senate member, and whether they voted yes or no on every bill. And so I encourage you to go to that, and I want to tell you, we will be updating that with information on, are those people planning to run for re-election? Do they face any challenges in the primary? Do they face any known challenges in the general election? Because Governor Scott and others have been saying the legislature had the supermajority, they can do what they want, and voters will decide whether they think it was a good idea or not on how they voted.
Yeah.
So our job here isn't really to persuade, but it is to inform. And we will be informing people as to how they voted and who they face, if anyone, in the election. So, Paul, do we have any comments yet?
We do have comments. I just want to say quickly before we read them off, we are going to have a graphic made up, probably ready for midweek sometime next week, and it'll have each one of these too. So, like, we have it up in the Chronicle right now. It's as a spreadsheet. We also just showed a photo here of Casey Tooff's photo. He took that after they voted to raise the property tax increase.
Representative Casey Tooff from St. Albans.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you. He put that on Twitter, and I believe he posted it really everywhere.
Oh, way to go, Casey.
Yeah, and it actually stirred up a lot of conversation, because that's the thing. I think that people are so disconnected from how their legislators are actually voting. They just don't know. They have no idea, and they maybe don't even know how to find out. So we're putting in the work to help you find out, and so are some of the representatives. And I just want to give a quick shout out to Ann Donahue and Ken Gosselin, my representatives here in Northfield, who voted no on the governor's to override the governor's veto.
They voted with the governor.
Yeah, they voted with the governor. Yes. Yeah, they voted with the governor. So thankful for that. Thankful for them. But we do have some comments. Let's see here. Roger Butch Bouchard says, "Hi, Guy and Paul." Thank you,
Roger. How you doing? Hey, Roger, I've been getting your emails and your messages. Thank you very much, and keep them coming. I love it when people reach out to me by email or text or messenger and give me ideas of, like, coverage ideas and here's what we need in Vermont, because no one can do this job in a vacuum, and I really value that. Thank you, Roger.
Yeah, I value it too, but that's why we ask for your comments, everybody. I mean, we get a lot of messages. I try to see as many as I can, read as many as I can, and reply. So please keep them coming. And let's see here. Roger also wrote, "Vote R and not D. However, no rhinos." Well, I can't say I disagree with that. I think we need definitely more Republicans in that building. We'll see if that happens. I mean, I think there's potential. There's some pretty good candidates out here. I just interviewed one the other day, Joe Jervis, which he says he says it's Jervis, not Gervais, which
Jervis?
Yeah, Jervis.
Yes.
Yeah. Which it was kind of a funny.
It's like Boucher or Boucher or Butcher.
Yes.
There are a million pronunciations of Gervais. How does he do it?
Gervais.
He does do Gervais?
Yeah, Gervais. Or excuse me, Jervis.
Jervis. Okay.
Yeah, Jervis.
All right.
Yeah. Timothy Page writes, why people don't want balanced politics is beyond me. Political extremism doesn't result in anything good. Also, who decides which arbitrary set of beliefs is okay for R and D? If somebody has a better idea, I really don't care what party it comes from, but party ideologues rarely advance those. And I guess that was kind of my thought to as a reply maybe to Roger Bouchard. It's like, I agree. I want more Republicans in that building. Absolutely. And just, we need more balance as a whole. However, thinking from my political hat, it's going to take some moderate Democrats in the State House too, because I mean, in a place like, I don't know, Waterbury, for example, a Republican winning is going to be a challenge.
Right.
But a moderate Democrat with some conservative values, especially fiscal values,
Right.
now that's a good option.
Speaking of which, on opposite sides of the state, you have a long time, as in multi-decade, Senate Democrats not running for election. Dick Mazza passed away, retired first, a definite definition of a centrist Democrat. Bobby Starr also over in the Northeast Kingdom. And so what you have is 2 centrist Democrat seats. Now, who's going to take their place? Will it be a Republican like Pat Brennan, who, by the way, is a sort of a somewhat socially liberal but fiscally conservative, a lot like Dick Mazza, frankly.
Yeah.
Former store owner in Mouts Bay, just like Dick Mazza. The two are really peas in a pod, except they have a D and an R next to their names. And a couple of Democrats who so far appear to be more on the current stripe of Democrats, more progressive. Over in Orleans County,
That's right.
you have Bobby Starr stepping down, and at least two very good Republican candidates, very good in the sense of they would much more tend to vote like Bobby Starr, and Catherine Sims, who's the Democrat and sort of the heir apparent, perhaps a little more likely to vote on the more progressive side. So
I think she's
which
one of the most
do you-
dangerous candidates, to be honest.
Do you?
I do.
Well, what do you mean?
I mean, dangerous in the sense where I get a sense that she's just like a total social climber, and she's just like wants to be governor, and she'll do whatever it takes to get to that point.
Okay.
Which, hey, I respect your ambition, but I don't think that you are what Vermont needs. Sorry, that's just my thoughts. I'm just saying, sometimes you got to speak the truth.
You don't have to be sorry.
No, I don't, I guess.
I mean, this show is about everyone's saying what they think.
That's right.
And if you've got an opinion on any of those candidates, love to hear it.
We have some comments here. Let's see here. We have Kevin Ryan, Mouth Almighty. He's changed his name from just Kevin Ryan to Kevin Ryan, Mouth Almighty.
Who gave you that name?
And he says, good afternoon. That's it. Good afternoon to you too,
Good
Kevin
afternoon,
Ryan.
Kevin. Hey, you've answered this question we asked you last week, but you obviously weren't watching. Who said, with great power comes great responsibility? Who was the wise sage who made that statement? Because I know you know the answer.
I think I know the answer.
Trust me.
I won't say it.
Kevin knows the answer to this one.
Mr. James 802 writes in, Article 7, this is the Vermont State Constitution. Government for the people, that they may change it. Tell me if it's the Vermont Constitution or the U.S. Constitution.
Okay.
That they may change it, that government is or ought to be instituted for the common benefit, protection, and security of the people, nation, or community. Sounds like the U.S. Constitution to me. It said nation.
Common Benefits Clause. I do think there's one like that in the Vermont Senate. I don't know the answer to that. Maybe it's in both.
And not for the particular emolument.
Yes. In other words,
or advantage
yes.
of any single person, family, or set of persons who are a part only of that community, and that the community hath an indubitable. I'm sorry. Indubitable. I don't think. Yeah, that is what it says. Indubitable. I should have known that. Unalienable and indefeasible right to reform or alter government in such a manner as shall be by that community judged most and conducive to the public weal.
I think that's the Vermont Constitution. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
right. Guy, I want to share this with you. I haven't told you this yet. I had some people come and get
He's
Creemee.
getting me back, Caleb, for making him sing.
Yeah, well, this is not the same. And, I wasn't going to tell you this till after the show, but the sound wasn't on when we were singing, so.
Come on.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. You're the guy with your finger on the button.
I didn't do it on purpose.
You've got the power.
I do.
See, we got to sing. Okay, so go ahead.
Okay, so anyway, I had some customers come in this weekend. Then they said to me, yeah, we're really big fans. And I said, and that's all they said. And I said, like the Creemees or like, and they're like, no, Creemee Cast. And I was like, yes, somebody came
Right.
in. Yeah, like great. And so they come in and we were chatting, and I had another friend who was here during all this too. And right before they got there, he says to me, you know, Paul, and he wasn't talking necessarily about us, but he was talking about just like Instagram, Facebook, everything in general. One of my favorite things to do is read the comments. Like it's so much fun to read the comments and see what people are saying. And I was like, I love it too. Like it's kind of an addiction, honestly. Like it's kind of bad, right? But so they come in and she goes, okay, well, I don't have any vices, but my vice is reading the comments on anything, but especially the Vermont Daily Chronicle.
Oh, all right.
I love the comments, and I actually like really kind of hit me like, you know, maybe the comments and everybody having a voice isn't such a bad thing.
It's a wonderful thing.
I think it's a wonderful.
I was part of a panel of journalists a week or two ago, and none of the other journalists there, their publications, had a comment section. They all said, oh, we used to do them, but boy, it was so much work, and frankly, people can be really ornery. And I said, you know, the comment section in the Chronicle, it is sometimes a lot of work, and people can be ornery, and guess what? It's the best read part of the paper.
It is.
Much more so than what I write. Are you kidding
come
me?
on, guy. Come on.
No way.
Well,
no, the comments, it's for this very reason that you just said.
Well, we obviously want people to read what we're saying, right?
Because yes,
we want to kind of be
nice.
like the soundboard, for example. We want to be, the conduit for the conversation. But what is this all about? What we're trying to do here at the Vermont Daily Chronicle and with Creemee Cast, and really, what is the Constitution? The First Amendment? What is it all about? And it's about the freedom of speech. And you know, I know people in Vermont government who absolutely loathe the fact that everybody has a voice, right? People in maybe high positions of office.
It's really true, Paul.
Yeah, they don't like it. They think, oh, well, you know, it used to not be this way. Everybody has a voice now. This is a problem. And it's like, I understand that, and I know why it's a problem to them, because I've dealt with scrutiny from people online, and maybe deservingly, and I'm not saying that everything I say is, you know, most of what I say is deserving of criticism. It's fine. Everybody should be allowed to say what they want. But they say things to me like, oh, it's used to be better when everybody used to not be able to. And it's like, you know, these conversations, you know, these things that you're seeing people, it's like everybody, there's a lot of, you know, village idiots out there. Don't get me wrong. But why should that guy not be allowed to expose himself as a village idiot? Like,
yes. Yeah. And it's worth it.
It is worth it.
It's worth a few village idiots to have real discourse in the public square.
And we do have real discourse going on too. And that's what, there's more people connecting and talking than ever before. And that's just, it's so important. But anyway, we're like way off subject right now.
We are. Speaking of which, do we have any more comments, or should we go on?
Yeah. Let's keep it going. Is the Constitution of the state of Vermont is the glue that has the strength to bind us as a people? That's from Mr. James 802. And then Kevin Ryan, Mouth Almighty, says, Guy, you're looking for Stan Lee as having said with great power, but the quote is actually from Winston Churchill in 1906.
No.
I don't know.
I thought it was a Stan Lee Spider-Man original, and it turns out to be my real hero, Winston Churchill?
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Kevin. Okay, you don't have to comment anymore. No. Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that.
Well, here's a really a great quote. Mr. James 802 wrote it, and this is one of the best quotes ever. The gods of the valley are not the gods of the hills, and you shall understand it. It's beautiful.
That is was Ethan Allen.
I believe it is Ethan Allen.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
And one last comment from Timothy Page. Speaking of spreading what we publish, feel free, guys, to forward our articles on Facebook, Reddit, Twitter, YouTube, everything.
Yes.
Spread the word. That is one of the easiest ways, especially if it's something that you're passionate about, a story that you care about, something that we've done.
Yes.
Share it.
Good point.
So easy.
So back to H87, the estimated statewide property tax increase. Yeah. So the impacts. Since it's happened, what's this going to mean for Vermont? You've talked about people moving out. I used to live in Cambridge, and I love to read the News and Citizen, which is the paper of Cambridge. And I found out last week that they voted down by 3 votes. They voted down building a community center. And it was in a building that was a perfect match, wasn't being used, right in the middle of Jeffersonville, would have been great. Guess what? It falls by 3 votes, and the main reason given was, sorry, can't do it this year. Property taxes too high.
Yeah.
So tough luck, Cambridge. You are still waiting in line because the legislature, and more important, the educational blob, the system, was first in line. And they had the power of the tax, and you didn't. So they got what they wanted. And who knows what else is going to shake out in terms of just lost quality of life. It's really hard to say. On a secondary thing, you mentioned people moving out. It's also true that some people are moving in. I was listening to public radio. It's as you may know, it's Pride Month, and there was a story on how Outright Vermont, which is the LGBTQ plus advocacy organization, has bought a new camp on Lake Sunset in Orwell, I believe, called Camp Outright, for trans campers, and they had some help with the state from Housing Conservation Board and another organization. But the point the person made was there is a significant migration to Vermont by the trans community because we are perceived as a welcoming state. It used to be in the 60s, the tourism expression was Vermont, the beckoning state. I still remember the bumper stickers when I was a kid. And we are a beckoning state in many ways. And when our school system is friendly to and welcoming to the trans community, and when you have like Camp Outright, it's just so people are always moving in, people always moving out.
Yeah.
It's always been the way of it, but this is definitely a movement that we're seeing now.
Well, and it's not been uncommon, by the way, for young Vermonters to leave the state. This has always been,
Right.
as somebody said to me, I think it was John Brabant said to me the other day, Vermont's biggest export has always been its youth.
That's right.
And I mean, that has always been true. However, I think we could do more to not make it that way.
Right.
Imagine a Vermont where its biggest export was like I don't know, maybe some industry. Something
Maple syrup.
other than maple syrup.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm not saying it's great.
Granite.
Well, granted, but
Yeah.
but it's
that's
but
not as big as it
it's
used to
not
be.
as big as it used to be. And
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know
true.
if that's and I'm not well versed on this, but I don't know if that's if there's reason why other than like is it environmental reasons why it's that way, or is it because it just isn't as feasible anymore to get as much granite out of here as they were? Is it cheaper to get it from places like China?
It certainly is.
That's kind of what
That is a
that is
fact.
my thought. And maybe
In fact, some of our berry manufacturers use Chinese granite.
do they really?
And there is some definite high feeling on that subject among the granite makers.
I didn't know
in
that.
Barrie. Yeah.
Well, we do have some more comments. Mr. James 802 writes, "I am retired military. The legislation is trying to push me out. I believe it's by design. Think Agenda 2030 and wildlife habitation zones and the loss of human access in areas like Vermont." No, that's exactly it. Like I think I completely
Yes.
agree, and I think that this is the thing: the people that are pushing it in Vermont, a lot of them. The legislators, they're not aware of what they're complicit in. They don't know. They're just voting the way that they vote because they're kind of there's 2 categories. There's useful idiots, which is kind of a harsh phrase. Maybe there's a better word, deplorables, I guess. I don't know.
That's
then
been taken.
that's been taken. Yeah, that has been taken. But you have the useful idiots, and then you have like real narcissistic sociopath, like they don't care and they are pushing an agenda from the national interests and special interest groups that are like way above the state of Vermont. We're just their little petri dish.
There was a lot of that.
Their little testing ground, you know. And
Vermont as a petri dish, that's a real thing.
it is real. And there's multiple instances that I could point to where we could say this, and it's been happening forever. Vermont is always the first to do something. Well, why? I mean, we could figure that out. It's because it's small. It's really easy to test out theories or ideas or concepts on a small population and see how that would translate to the larger world. So a lot of the times you'll see Vermont do something first, and then a place like California then will copy, and vice versa, by the way, and vice versa, especially with its proximity to New York City, Boston, and really the Northeast as a whole. It's just a small enough space where they can test this stuff out, and
absolutely
a lot of money involved in that.
And there's a big out-of-state grant, an advocacy grant. The Let's Grow Kids was a huge push with an organization that had a lot of money behind it and said, let's make it happen. The anti-smoking legislation, for which I was an advocate and lobbyist for a while, absolutely big out-of-state money saying, let's get a law passed limiting smoking in Vermont. So, and there's...
It's always,
through and through, you'll find that.
Well, I was having a conversation with a lawyer and lobbyist, I won't name names, the other day. And that's kind of what the conversation that we were having about. It's like no bill in this state comes from here. Nothing. Like almost nothing. Very rare. Or nothing meaningful anyway. Like it's never coming from Vermonters and from here. It's coming from elsewhere.
Well, 802 there mentioned...
Kevin, or
the wildlife
Mr. James.
habitat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So let's talk about that.
Sure. Let's
that
talk.
Was the H687 Act 250 reform. I'll put air quotes around that one. The gist of that was, okay, yes, we do have a housing crisis. We got to do something about our housing crisis. So what they said was, we will loosen some Act 250 exemptions on if you have a downtown lot and where you used to have one house, maybe we'll let you build 3 or 4. You can have some, we can make it more dense. You have to jump through a million hoops to do it, but yes, okay. We'll allow some more housing units, small housing units, to be built in urban areas. However, because the most influential member of the House on environmental stuff is a huge believer, constantly referring to the UN's biodiversity stuff. And you talk about an organization essentially being allowed to call the shots. That is what you have in Vermont. They said no building any houses that might possibly interfere with wildlife habitat. So if a bear has been seen going across some property, tough luck, because the bear's habitat is an awful lot more important than yours. And so really, rural development, forget it.
Yeah,
and that's maybe if you're a really wealthy person and you can get that more than 10 acres and maybe you can get that. But for you and me, Paul, forget it.
Well, it always makes me laugh because they keep saying, I think it was Jill, I can never say her last name right.
Krowinski. Speaker of the House.
Speaker of the House. I think it was her who said, "Oh, it's a comprehensive housing bill."
Oh, yeah, we were sitting there, weren't we?
That's their favorite phrase.
Yes.
It's like, it's such a lie.
Yeah,
it's literally such a lie.
It is anything but that.
And that's the thing. And I think it was maybe it was Mike Kaczynski who wrote in last week. He said, anytime they use the word like, "Oh, it's the Patriot Act," or "Oh, it's a housing bill," it's the exact opposite.
The Affordable Heating Bill.
The Global Warming Solutions Act.
Yes, that's right. Because we're going to solve the... No, wait. No, we're not.
No, we're not.
Yeah, anyway.
It's just unbelievable.
So we had people responding to this Act 250, quote-unquote, housing reform bill, which isn't one. Representative Terry Williams from Essex County in the deep, dark, and beyond of the Northeast Kingdom. Granby, town of Granby. And she's not running for re-election, and she stood up and said something she's been wanting to say for quite a while. And she said, what this bill does, this Act 250, this makes life worse for my constituents. And she said, you should be ashamed of yourselves, she said to her fellows in the House. She was in tears, and she said, don't come up to me and ask me how you're doing, because you're doing this. You should be ashamed of yourselves for what you're doing to poor rural people who are, by the way, living in old houses that good luck getting permission to rebuild on. to expand, to maybe put a nice home on the back few acres of a farm. Good luck, because the bears, or whatever. Yeah, it's just anyway.
It makes me think maybe we should go pull that footage from the State
Wow.
House. That might be a good
Wouldn't
idea.
be hard.
No, it wouldn't be hard.
It'd
I'll
be
find
from
it.
the veto session, kind of near the beginning.
Yeah,
Um,
I'll find it.
20 minutes in or so. Good idea.
Yeah, definitely, because I think it needs to be done, and I'm not seeing it anywhere else. Like, I'm not seeing it from CAX or,
Right.
or PTZ or anything, which
Yeah.
is, I don't know if it's purposeful omission or just they don't.
Well, there was a lot going on that day.
There was a lot going on that day. Absolutely.
But yes, that's a very good idea, Paul. Why don't you do that?
I will. Let's see here. We do have some comments. Let's see. Timothy Page wrote a great comment. I know, Guy. I know. This is a really funny one. This is funny. He says, wait a second. Where is it? Sorry, everybody. We need to mandate that all cars in Vermont run on maple syrup. I think that's a good idea. Because Kevin Ryan wrote before that, Vermont is still the top producer of maple syrup in the United States by over 400%.
It's true.
That's pretty crazy.
Yep.
Let's see here. Mike King writes, pass the Granite Postal Act, mandate Vermont granite and all POS. Come on. I agree. Why? Actually, it's so true. Why should Chinese granite be allowed in Vermont? We're supposed to be Barrie's supposed to be the granite capital of the world. Why are you? That shouldn't be allowed.
Because my grandmother's headstone will be $50 cheaper.
Yeah,
I mean, that's kind of the reason why.
It is, but is it really?
Yeah.
Just seems like
good point.
So wrong. I guess free markets, right? Where do you? This is a philosophical conversation. Let's not go that far into it.
Yeah.
Let's see here. The people, Mr. James 802 writes, the people have the right to the land, not the state. And that's basically covered in, let's see, unalienable rights, amongst which the enjoying and defending life, liberty, acquiring, possessing, and protecting property, and pursuing and obtaining happiness and safety. Therefore, slavery and indentured servitude in any form are prohibited. And I can't help but to wonder if Vermont homeowners are feeling like they're involved in some sort of indentured servitude for paying the property taxes that they're paying.
There's a term called rent surf.
Yeah.
I think I may have spoken it before, where essentially it's almost like your property owns you. And when you, to just have the privilege of living in a small place, have to pay half of your salary, there's just something very wrong with that. And I wouldn't say necessarily it's been purposefully done, but it's been allowed to happen knowing that it's going to happen. And that, to me, is real dereliction of duty. So, which sort of brings us to one of the next bills. So we've covered two bills, which is the H-87, the property tax. We've covered the Act 250 bill, the not really housing reform bill. And the third biggie that they overrode the veto was H-289, the Renewable Energy Standard. And what this does, it's a total gift to the renewable power industry. It says 70% of all electricity in Vermont will need to be in-state renewables, and that all of the electricity will need to be renewable wherever it comes from by, I want to say 2035, by some date. And what they say is, well, we can build enough wind and we can build enough solar, and look, offshore in the Atlantic Ocean off Massachusetts, we're building these big wind turbines. And oh boy, are they going to save us a lot of money. And so I wondered, I wonder how much money they're going to save us. And they're saying, oh, billions, it's going to save us billions. And then I looked at what they claimed would be their cost per megawatt hour of producing power per megawatt hour. And they said, the people doing it said, about $150 per megawatt hour. Anyone who read my story this morning on the near power outage that we had because of the heat wave and certain power generators failing, that was in this morning's Chronicle, will see that the average price for power is about $30 per megawatt hour. on just an average time of day, 30, 40 bucks. And they are saying, oh, we're going to save a ton of money with $150 per megawatt hour. Let me see. My car costs $20,000 and they're going to charge me 5 times as much. It's going to cost $100,000, but don't worry, I'm going to save money.
Yeah.
How does that work?
It's just it's delusion.
Yeah. Unless maybe the feds, some tax money from Texas and New York and California ends up like buying that down somehow, but that's coming from us too. So why not just do, I'm not shilling for the governor here, but he had actually a pretty good idea, which is, look, we've got Hydro-Quebec to the north. We've got 2 carbon-free nuclear power plants still operating in New England. Why not just buy their carbon-free power and call it a day? Why not just do that?
Yeah.
Oh, no. We need to. Oh, the other thing about this bill, which I'm obviously not a big fan of, H289, the Renewable Energy Standard, it takes away some of the decision-making power from towns who don't want a wind turbine in their neighborhood, who don't want a 10-acre solar farm in their neighborhood. It says, basically, you towns, get out of the way, let the big boys play, the state's going to decide. And it's sort of already the regs right now, but it makes them even more so. Local control? I don't want to have any wind turbines in my town. Well, a lot of people say, oh, you want Burlington, you want wind turbines? I'm sure there's a bunch of really great hills in Burlington where you could build a wind turbine.
Yeah.
But
they're not.
They're not.
No.
For some crazy reason. They're not.
Well, it is interesting to me, too, that like just the double standard, right? Like if we want to build something, a commercial property or more housing or whatever it is, Act 250 makes it somewhat difficult to accomplish that. But if it's for the renewable energy industry, we do anything. We'll cut down all the trees. Let's cut them all down and clear cut fields and everything.
There are no bears up there.
No, there's no bears.
So don't worry about the habitat.
Exactly. No, that's fine. That's fine. Right. And that's the thing. It'd be one thing if this stuff was like actually useful and it was going to solve the problems, but it sounds like it's just going to create more problems. And environmental issues, by the way. That sounds like there's going to be more environmental issues because of the renewable energy industry.
You mentioned John
Brabant.
Yes, and he's someone to always raise a good point that the so-called environmental organizations in Vermont have really just become cronies and shills for the industry.
Yeah.
For the power generation industry. They're not really thinking about what's good for the beavers and what's good for the bears. They're thinking about what's good for the power generators, because that's climate,
We do have a comment from Mr. James 802. Abolition of property and land and application of all rent. Oh, excuse me. Let me start from the top here. Karl Marx, 10 planks to seize power and destroy freedom. So before I read this, I had somebody say to me the other day, there is no strain of Marxism in the United States government or in Vermont government. And it was Kevin Ellis. We were having back and forth online.
Very interesting.
And I also had a conversation again with John Brabant. We were kind of talking about this
He's
too.
Self-described socialist.
Yeah, he is. And he said I would be careful. And he's a really bright guy. He's awesome.
Yeah, they both are.
They both are. And he said I would be really careful about throwing around the phrase Marxism, like just throwing it around.
Okay.
Because you can't just label things as that. And when people do, a lot of the times, it just makes you look stupid because
they call someone a fascist.
Yeah, it's the same.
What does it really mean?
The same exact idea, right? So this point that's being made here actually kind of doesn't prove what I'm saying. It just gives a little bit of context. It's Karl Marx's 10 planks to seize power and destroy freedom. This is from Mr. James 802. Abolition of property and land and application of all rents of land to public purpose.
Check.
Heavy, progressive, or graduated income tax.
Check.
So that's he didn't go over all 10. However, unless maybe he did. No, he didn't.
Well, we got 2 of them anyway.
Yeah, so I guess those are two big ones.
Yeah.
Where obviously somebody, maybe not in Vermont, is telling people this is one way that we can consolidate power, and this is how we can do it, and this is how we're going to do it. And then they just convince them all that we're all going to die because of climate change, and we have an existential threat. It's all over. It's coming. The end is near. The end times. It's here.
Right.
But so then they just do anything to stop that, apparently. So, but that is how ultimately, if that's
fear.
Marxism, right? I mean, I maybe they wouldn't define it as Marxism, but I think it is.
Yeah. So,
Mike King writes, he's a commie for saying it. I hope he's out there watching.
Okay. So another bill that got, this was one of the ones that just drove a lot of people crazy. These safe injection sites, they call it, which is they want to open up a center in Burlington where you can walk in there and shoot up all the fentanyl and heroin and whatever you want, and the cops can't come and do anything about it, and there'll be social workers and nurses standing by in case you have an overdose, and they'll give you clean needles and everything, basically to quote-unquote safely some of the lethal aspects of drug use, perhaps to mitigate those, but doing nothing really to help people get off this, to discourage them from doing it. So the House passed it overwhelmingly, overrode the veto overwhelmingly, but then the Senate came in and it failed by one vote. And so it was, for a few minutes anyway, there was this sense of, wow, well, they didn't get everything they wanted anyway. And so I was walking through the Cedar Creek room, and I ran into a certain senator and mentioned that to him. He said, yeah, but, Guy, that's still in play because one of the senators now wants to change his vote.
Yeah.
I think because it was so close.
Yeah.
Maybe he didn't think it was going to be so close.
I've had a bunch of people say that it was a mistake and he didn't realize which bill they were voting on.
Let me tell you something, Paul.
I keep hearing
that is not what happens. Here is exactly what happens. I can't read Richie Westman's mind, and I've known him for a million years. He's a good guy. So maybe he did just get confused, okay? But really what happens is he doesn't want to be on record. Someone in that situation, maybe not Richie, but someone in that situation does not want to be on record as voting a certain way. So they vote the other way, knowing that the leadership's still going to be happy because it's still going to pass. So everyone's happy. Everyone gets what they want.
Oh, I see.
Until his vote actually matters.
Yeah.
And the leadership comes over him and says, Richie, we need your vote. Hey, and are you sure you really knew what was going on? Well, gosh, maybe I really ought to reconsider. And so they kicked it around, and he was allowed to reconsider, and the veto was overrode, and Burlington will get its quote-unquote safe injection site, whereupon somehow it will be safe to inject fentanyl into your system.
Is that how you do fentanyl?
I think so.
I don't even know how you do it.
I don't know. I'm not sure I even want to know.
I don't think I want to know either.
But it would be safe to, however one consumes fentanyl and heroin.
You don't
all
know
those things.
You don't know. I don't know. Well, I mean, hey, look, when they open that thing up, I'll be up there. I'll be out there. I'm going to be doing street interviews. Should be interesting, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I wonder if they're going to open it like right in City Hall Park.
I think I think where they have in mind is actually a little bit down on Lower Church Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, and
stop in at Rasputin's, have a beer, shoot up some heroin. Sorry, it's really not funny, but
we should have a show someday on the craziness that is Burlington.
We will,
but
we should do a whole show.
Oh my gosh,
yeah,
it just gets crazier and crazier. So that went through.
Yeah,
there was one Do you have a?
I do have some comments, but it's about 5 minutes of 5.
Oh wow!
I know we've been going a while. We're not going to get through all these bills. I know.
Well, we'll do them quickly.
Okay.
There's one that really needs a little bit of talking about, which is H121, protecting citizens' data privacy rights. Gave business people the right to sue businesses who use data, and a hidden little clause in there that said that parents will not have the right to surreptitiously monitor their children's internet use. How crazy is that? Oh, gee, I think my kid might be wanting to commit suicide. I think he might be into pornography. Maybe I'll put a tag on his cell phone or his computer or whatever. No, you can't do that. That's what that bill said. And that bill was successfully vetoed. They sustained that veto very narrowly. And I think what happened, I'm just speculating here, but Senator Dick Sears, who passed away before the veto session, Senator Brian Campion, who is his seatmate from Bennington, voted with the governor on this, and so did 2 or 3 other kind of older center Democrats who've actually voted for the bill. So it does sort of make you wonder, did they say in honor of Dick Sears, who his votes were against it, did they perhaps go his way? I don't know. Now, last 2 bills, there was something in restorative justice, basically some non-punitive interventions, mostly for youth. Governor said, that's a great idea, and there's no money in the budget, and you don't have any funding ticket in that bill, and we can't do it. And they said, oh, yes, we can. And they overrode that. And then there was another bill banning the use of neonicotinoid pesticides, which basically would be good for the bees, maybe, but definitely bad for the farmers, as Governor Scott says, another endangered species, the Vermont farmer. And that bill also, the veto was overrode, and that has gone into law.
That's one I did not follow very closely.
So that's the veto session. Folks, keep watching the Daily Chronicle for more information on how people voted, on their election status, and what you can do about it.
I do have a couple more comments before we go. Let's fire them off just to why not? Kevin Ryan, Mouth Almighty. Alice is 100% wrong. Marxism is basically government ownership of services. Is Alice putting us on? I wouldn't trust Kevin Ellis as far as I could throw him.
Well, you couldn't throw him very far anyway, Kevin. Okay.
There's that. And let's see. Pretty much it for comments today. There's a handful more, guys. I'm sorry, but we gotta wrap this up. So, Guy, you have anything you want to add before we close this?
No, except thank you for everyone who commented.
Yeah.
And this show would be so dull without your comments, without your input.
You guys make it fun.
You make it fun, yeah. And we'll see you next week, Friday at 4. Caleb, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Paul, good show.
Potentially Tuesday, maybe we're going to do a show.
We might.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think we're going to do the Bernie episode.
Maybe.
We'll see.
And who knows? Maybe we'll have the guitar out and we'll have a duet ready.
We could do that.
We'll see.
It'd be fun. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Right.
All right. Thanks, everybody.